Bonsoir. We're almost done. I'm sorry about that. So my co-author, Denise Seval, she couldn't make it to the conference, but she's doing some research at the intersection of feminist studies and AI. Myself, I'm doing research on data governance for AI and healthcare innovation. So we're both PhD students affiliated with CLTS. So briefly, artificial intelligence is a fast-evolving technology addressing challenges such as prediction and recommendation, so increasing efficiency of automated decision-making. So initially, we thought that artificial intelligence, because of its objectivity, would eliminate human bias from automated decision. We noticed that it was opposite. Artificial intelligence increased automating inequality, enhancing pre-existing discriminations, gender-based discriminations. So in 2019, Canada's Treasury Board introduced the Directive on Automated Decision-Making and introduced a new tool to mitigate those risks, the Algorithmic Impact Assessment. So basically, it's a list of questions regarding the impacts of algorithms on people's lives. Based on that score, you'd have like some measures. Anyway, so using a feminist and a queer approach, my work assessed how efficient the Canadian Algorithmic Impact Assessment is in addressing gender-based discrimination and bias in AI models and systems. We're going to also provide some recommendations if you want to pass by the poster. Just a spoiler, obviously, relying only on the Algorithmic Impact Assessment is not enough. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next is Marta Zioso.
Hi, everyone. It's Marta Ziosi from the University of Oxford. And so in my poster, I present my research on how we can leverage algorithmic bias as evidence for anti-discriminatory policymaking. Basically, I'm reframing algorithmic bias from just being an object of social critique to being looked at as a device for social critique. Basically, not just as a problem, but also as a device through which we can address existing disparities in society. In this poster, I specifically focus on a case of a crime risk assessment algorithm that has been developed at the University of Chicago. And this algorithm claims to be able to capture also police enforcement bias. So what I'm doing is I'm interviewing different stakeholders related to the algorithm, from the researchers to the communities who have been affected, to also police and policymakers, to question them and ask what are the roles that they can ascribe and they would like to ascribe to the different evidence brought up by this bias. So far, I'm finding out that evidence is pretty political. So basically, each actor ascribes a different role to bias depending on their goal and depending on their worldview. Overall, I see the contribution of this research specifically for policy as being sort of like framing bias as a problem, and in that helping us to focus on policies that are not just there to automate fairer predictions, but also to address existing disparities in society. Thank you very much.
Next is Mateus Falco.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'm presenting today a poster with my colleague Renan that just presented called Governance of Health Data for AI Innovation, Reconciling Personal Data Protection, Economic Justice, and Non-Discrimination in the Context of Brazil. So to start with that, why Brazil? Easy answer, because we're both Brazilians and we thought this could be easier. However, there's more into that. Brazil claims to have the largest unified public health and public healthcare system in the world. Over 200 million people are under the same health system. So a lot of people, a lot of health data, and this is the current state of things there. So we decided to assess the current legal framework in Brazil to understand under three approaches how health data for AI innovation was protected or not. The first approach, and here I'm going to oversimplify a bit things to make more understandable, but the first approach, personal data protection, is aimed at the question, it's my own data that's being used on AI innovation, being used against my interest. Second approach, non-discrimination. how to ensure that my own health data that's being used in the AI innovation process is not harming the interests and the right of others, for instance, with algorithm bias, as we discussed today earlier in the panel. And finally, economic justice, how to make sure that if my health data is being used for innovation, I will be entitled, I'll have access to the benefits of this innovation process. And by benefits, we understand access, affordability, what you may call. A bit of a spoiler here, we find that there's a lot going on in the parliament, a lot of discussions, a little bit of the framework already approved, especially on personal data protection, but we have still a long way to go, especially in this final part of economic justice. So I invite you, if you wanted to learn more, to discuss with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I should have added that Mateusz is one of our Alex Trebek doctoral fellow at the End Society initiative. Next up is Kento Ramamonjiso.
Hi everyone, I'm Kanto and I'm a master's student in digital law at the University of Poitiers in France. And I'm here to present my poster about ethical and legal issues of activity analysis platforms in AI-based educational research. It's about the results of my internship in a Techne laboratory in Poitiers on a NAR research project, which objective is to measure learners' engagement in context-aware classrooms, which involves data collection and processing by AI, such as eye tracking to measure behavior, gestures, emotions, and all the dimensions of engagement. And that raises the question of how the issues raised by these context-aware classrooms are actually going to be addressed in reality. That is why it is important to consider ethical and legal issues prior to the beginning of the project. And it's about ethics, privacy, and ethics and privacy by design. About the legal issues, I'm talking about the AI Act, and as far as education is concerned, we talk about high risk and this AI Act also stresses the importance of using this technology to contribute to the development of teaching and learning. Plus, there's the GDPR with issues and problematics such as the basis of the data processing, the issue of pseudonymization and anonymization of data, and finally, with AI, there's the risk of automated individual decisions with AI algorithms. I invite you to pass by the posters. Thank you.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Kento. Next is Marussia Lévesque.
Hi, everyone. This poster is with my collaborator, Kristen Thomason, who sends her regards. She couldn't be here with us today. So the poster is about generative AI, our current hype cycle. And the idea was to set the record straight on what it actually is, and maybe more importantly, what it isn't. We think it's a really important point so that we can have kind of evidence-based policy discussions. So we argue that the term generative AI is actually a misnomer, because these are probabilistic approaches that are actually devoid of any original, fresh content. So what generative AI does is merely rearranging past material. It doesn't produce original work. And you can come argue with us about this, or me, and I'll call her if I don't have all the answers. And so we argue that the models actually just issue averaged out, kind of good enough guesstimates that deplete our ideas ecosystem and ultimately result in decay and deterioration of our discourse and creativity. And that's particularly the case as we're now entering this era where AI systems are trained on synthetic data. So there's a kind of recursiveness there, where synthetic data is training systems that are themselves issuing more synthetic data. So we think that's going to have some interesting consequences that lawmakers need to grapple with. So come talk to me.
Thank you so much. Next up is Alexandra Bouchard.
Hello, so I'm a lawyer and a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Law at the University of Sherbrooke. And my poster is titled after my research thesis, which is titled Public Administration Augmented by Artificial Intelligence, Transforming the Law to Regulate the Use of New Technologies in Public Administrations in Canada and Quebec. So for several years now, public administrations have become places of technological innovations, whether it be to ensure the implementations of managerial reforms or more recently to participate in the deployment of complex technological tools based, for instance, on AI, as we've been discussing today. Therefore, public administrations have always been able to adapt to these new realities by using different forms and modes of regulations. Whereas law has been used to implement and regulate these technological tools, and we've been discussing much of this today, my thesis is mostly concerned by how is law being transformed by the use of these technological tools. And so to answer these questions, I am mobilizing a new legal theory that is being developed by by the research center which I work with at the University of Sherbrooke, which is called Centre de recherche sur la régulation et le droit de la gouvernance. And this approach is trying to show how modern law is in fact has limits and in the face of the contemporary regulations mechanisms and the fact that we need to reintegrate in jurist discussions other types of normativities in the face of globalization, new state governments, and more recently technological developments. This approach, as you've been probably guessed, is very interdisciplinary. So in my research, I've been discussing and integrating disciplinary knowledge from law, ethics, computer science, political science, cybernetics, and administrative sciences. I think my time is almost done. So yeah, I invite you guys to come discuss with me, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Han Kiao.
Hi everyone, my name is Han. I'm a PhD student at University of Toronto. I usually study human-computer interaction, but this work I'm presenting here was in collaboration with my mentor, Fahim Hassan from Ontario Digital Service when I did an internship there. And this summer, we looked at algorithmic and AI impact assessment tools. So basically, as someone else mentioned, it's a process of anticipating and evaluating risk and harms associated with algorithmic decision-making systems or machine learning applications, etc. And when we look at how these kind of processes are being adopted at different organizations, we see that there are still a lot of open questions around how these processes are designed and implemented. And so in the poster, we pose 3 open questions. One is, when do we evaluate and reevaluate algorithms? And second is, how do we support different stakeholders to reflect on the risks and harms, incorporating multiple ways of knowing? And then thirdly is, how do we incorporate transparency beyond the initial design phase of a system? And so we also take a first stab at these questions in our poster, and looking forward to discuss with everyone and potentially collaborate on expanding the project in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is our Scotiabank doctoral fellow, Aurélie Petit.
Hi everyone, I'm a fellow in AI and inclusion at the CLTS, where I work specifically with the Cradle team and Jason Millar. So I'm a social and visual researcher who specialized in the intersection of animation and technology. And the project I'm presenting today at the poster section proposed to think of deepfake pornography as animation. So to be more precise, I propose that deepfake porn and 3D porn animation of celebrities, and in this case Ariana Grande, exist in the same trajectory of manufactured pornography. So just like animated pornography, deepfake porn is a manufactured media, but as consumers or as viewers, there is often a line that we draw between the two. So there is a moment where we stop to think of, this animated content as fan art or as transformative works, as it's like legally categorized, and either we see it exploitative and non-consensual, ways in which like deepfake porn is often called. And here I ask, what can we learn from this distinction? And of course, it's a bit of an intellectual provocation because there are obvious differences over access, scale, and creativity. But in my research, I argue that, in terms of regulatory practices of AI-assisted pornography, it would be more effective in the future to actually parallel deepfake porn with animation rather than live action. And only then we're going to be able to truly understand how AI porn continue to resist live action media governance frameworks, and in particular as it concerns issues of copyright and creative labor, and also creative freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next is Jean de Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm a PhD student in the Catholic University of Louvain-la-Neuve in Belgium, and today I'm presenting a poster on the interactions between disinformation, artificial intelligence, and the Digital Services Act. My preliminary results argue that under the DSA, the use of artificial intelligence when linked to disinformation should be considered a systemic risk by very large online platforms when they perform yearly risk assessments as provided by Article 34 of the DSA. To do so, I focused on three uses of AI linked to disinformation: the use of AI to produce disinformation, the use of AI to disseminate disinformation, and the use of AI to moderate disinformation by online platforms. Findings shows that the use of AI pose specific risk regarding electoral activities and civil discourse, as well as regarding freedom of speech and expression of online users. We have complemented this analysis with data analysis based on the current Digital Services Act Transparency database, which contain moderation decisions of currently the biggest online platforms. And for more info, you can come see the poster. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Hamideh Ganadian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamideh Ganadian. I am a PhD student at University of Ottawa, Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. So my project today is about the ChatGPT for assessment of suicidal ideation on social media. So as you may know, more than 700,000 people die every year due to suicide. One of the most effective methods recommended by WHO is to prevent suicide and get the information for the suicide from the social media, because people are expressing themselves a lot in social media. So this project, we have two main research questions. The first research question is that, can ChatGPT assess the suicidality of the written text? And the second question is that, is the performance of ChatGPT comparable with existing AI models that are trained on human annotated data sets? So here we have a data set that is annotated by human experts, and we are comparing the performance of ChatGPT to assess the suicidality, 4 level of suicidality, and compare it to the human experts. I will be happy to talk about it in poster session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next is Cristiano de Souza Terrien, who was our Scotiabank postdoctoral fellow last year.
I'm the last. I'll try to make it quick. Our work is about, the title is Indigenous Graphics in Aesthetics and Generative Artificial Intelligence, Risks of Future and Present Misappropriation. Well, in fact, the work was proposed by Cristiane Pancararu. She's an indigenous leader in Brazil, also a scholar there. She's a doctoral candidate at Museum Nacional of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She invited assistant professor from Toronto Metropolitan University, Priscila Joka, to do this research. And Professor Joka made an offer that I couldn't refuse. She's my wife. And I'm supposed to be the IT guy, right? So, and in fact, over 20 years ago, there was this meeting of the Pajés, the indigenous leaders in Brazil, were there, and they wrote a letter for WIPO, for the Organization on Intellectual Property, and where they defended some changes in intellectual property to recognize collective copyright, so they could protect their traditional knowledge and their cultural traditions. And since then, there was they created an institution for intellectual property, Indigenous Brazilian Institute for Intellectual Property. And we have several bills in Brazil about this. None was voted. But the problem is now much bigger than that. So Cristiane, she invited us to visit this topic regarding generative AI and the need. It was important 20 years ago, now it's more urgent than ever. And you can check on our poster over there. Most of the images were made with Midjourney, DALL-E, and Leonardo AI. So take a look and we can chat there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Alexandre Bretel.
Hi, everyone. So I'm working on a project about the Montreal Declaration of AI for responsible AI. So I'm a PhD student in my last year of studies, so I have a lot of work to do to finish my thesis. And I'm doing something that I found interesting is that I will put ethics in AI in a sense that I will read philosophers that I've studied on ethics. So for example, I'm working with Hans Jonas with a responsibility principle, or Hannah Arendt with a banality of evil, or Gunther Enders with a Promethean gap, which says that there is difference between what we can represent and what we can actually do, because what we are doing is much more complicated, complex, and interesting than what we can really represent. So I will put this kind of analysis with the concept of responsibility in the Montreal Declaration, because as you may know, in the Montreal Declaration for Responsible AI, there is many concepts. There is autonomy, privacy, inclusivity, and so on. And one of them is a responsibility. So I will ask to the signatories of the declaration a retrospective analysis about their implication and their involvement in this concept, and to see what we can do to enhance their implementation if this kind of philosophical analysis that I will provide can really enhance their practice. So this is what I'm planning to do in Montreal for the few weeks that are here to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to highlight that they all got selected after an international competition on abstract with peer review, double-blind peer review, and all those emergent researchers, including the one who are like English is a very second or third language. They could have spoken in French. They all wanted to speak in English to be sure to be fully understood by everybody tonight. And they all respected the time. So, you know, you can book them for talks for your next events because they're very good. So on this note, it closed the program for the day.